San Francisco Bay Area. Please put your trade in for full flights. Simpson or I'm just like, I love the window seat, and there's this beautiful bay with these little white specks of sailboats and the beautiful cliffs, and I'm just like, oh, that's awesome. But we just kept going down.
This is part 2 of Online Strike.
The cliffs in the bay. And we're just going down, and everything in my body, we got to about 1,000 feet. I wanted to ring the flight attendant and go, hey, yeah, I was just noticing out my window here, beautiful bay and the cliffs and stuff. I was just thinking probably one of the most important parts of the word landing is land. And it's over there.
Go.
You wouldn't mind scurry up, tell the pilots, turn. Great. But I just sat there. I didn't say anything. And then we started our way down. And we got down to under 1,000 feet, 800 feet, 700 feet, 600 feet. I'm like, and we just keep going down over the bay. We get under 200 feet, and I'm looking out and going, I fly all the time. I am physically nervous at this point. Just going, And the only thing in my mind is going, ring the flight attendant, jump up, run up, tell the idiots, turn. The land's over there. I'm looking out the window, and I'm just thinking, we're dead. We're dead. I'm seeing people on sailboats waving to us as we're going down. The only thought going through my brain is your seat cushion can be used as a flotation device. I'm just like, We get under 100 feet. I'm like, we're dead. Water, dead. 80, 70. Out of nowhere, a runway appeared. And within 10 seconds, we're on the ground. I'm like, I had a little different prayer at that point. I said, God, I hope you enjoyed that. And a thought came into my mind, well, why didn't you get up? Why didn't you run up? Why didn't you beat on the door? Because I trusted. I trusted United Airlines does not hire guys off the street with will work for food signs. Want to fly an airplane? It's really fun. I don't do it. I trusted my friends who are pilots. They carry that case with them, and they have an approach. But most of all, I trusted they had the front window, and they were going to get us there. And what I'm learning is trust is, sometimes the best we got is a side view. I want to tell you a quick part of what I'm learning about trust, just to really get that to the core. I know that intellectually, that God really does have the front view, and he gets it. I get that part, but a couple of years ago, I learned it at a different level. I just want to share it with you real quick. April 27th of 2007, my whole world changed. I was in Colorado Springs on tour. I get a phone call from my wife, Heather, and she goes, hey, I'm going to take Kennedy to the doctor. She's still complaining about her knees. She goes to the doctor, then goes and gets an x-ray. They call her at the x-ray to go to another doctor, to a specialist, and by the end of the day, I walk off stage. I call home and said, hey, how did it turn out? She's crying. And I was like, whoa, what's wrong? And I heard 3 words that no parent should ever have to hear. She said, Kennedy has cancer. My 3-year-old daughter. And my whole body went numb. And I'll never forget that moment. I'll never forget where I was. I went to the airport. There wasn't a flight. I rented a car. I drove to Denver. I took the red eye. I came home. And I went to Children's Hospital, and I saw my daughter laying in a bed there. And my whole world changed. I'll never forget those first several weeks. The first 8 months of chemo is intensive, where they go every week. And then if any complications, you have to go to the emergency room. And the one part I want to share with you tonight that just really was a radical change in my understanding of trust. In 10 days, I was in the hospital 8 times. I was averaging about 2 hours of sleep a night. I was physically, emotionally, and mentally drained. And I'll never forget, my daughter had a temperature again due to the side effects of the chemo, and I remember scooping her up 3 in the morning, putting her in the back seat and driving to the hospital. And I was having one of those thought prayers, just in my mind.
I'm worried about TikTok suing my ass, so I will be back.
Not in a, she knows what's going to happen. We're going to get there.
I am back.
She has a port in her chest, and they're going to stick a needle in her port, and they're going to put medicine in there, and they're going to rule out all kinds of stuff. And she goes, Daddy, I don't want to go there. I want to go home. And I just had this understanding. How do I explain to her? How do you explain to a 3-year-old? We have to do this. See, there could be complications. And we have to do this because if we do this, you have an 85 or 90% chance of remission with no reoccurrence. But if we don't, you have about a 20 to 15% chance. We have to do this. How do you explain that to a 3-year-old? You can't. You can't.
You're listening to Ken Kington on Focus on the Family. And you might be thinking of a friend or a family member who would be encouraged by his humor and his insight and heart as you're hearing it. Contact us for a CD, which has a lot of extra content that we can't present here. We'll send that out to you when you make a gift of any amount to the ministry, monthly pledge, or one-time gift. Our number is 800-FAMILY, 800-232-6459. Or you can donate and request that CD at focusonthefamily.com/broadcast. Let's return now to more from Ken Kington.
And as I held her hand, I said, honey, I'm right here. And I had the realization the one person that she trusted was taking her to the one place she did not want to go. And in that moment, I just thought, I get it. I prayed, I said, God, I'm not going to get this. I'm not going to understand it. And there was a verse that came to my mind, trust in the Lord with all your heart. Don't lean on what you understand. And I'm like, I get it. I can no more explain to her why we're having to go through this than I'm going to understand why we're having to go through this. I said, but all I got is trust. I'm so glad I can trust something bigger than me. And I began to learn about that. And as we went through this, I learned some incredible lessons. And there's one word. I love to encourage people. This is my livelihood. This is my life. I love to make people laugh. I love to encourage people. I remember coming back from the hospital after 2 weeks, and I'm learning this at a new level. One of my son's friends from school's dad owns a landscaping company. He drove up, parked on the curb at our house. I'm walking to the mailbox. We haven't been there for 2 weeks. He got out of his truck and he came around. I'll call him Royce because that's his name. So Royce came over. He goes, hey, man, I'm so sorry to hear about your daughter. Just want you to know we're praying for you. And I was like, thanks, Royce. I said, I appreciate it. He goes, I just want you to know we're in this area all summer, and I just want you to know we're going to take care of your yard all summer. And I said, Royce, I said, man, I appreciate that. You don't have to do that. I said, if you could do it one time, though, that'd be great. And he was like, no, we're going to do it all summer. I said, well, you know what? If you could just do it like twice, like this week and maybe next week, because we're trying to figure this whole thing out. And he's just like, yeah, you're not getting this. We're doing it all summer. And I was like, oh, because he took this word. And this one word has changed my life. It was my best friend and I that sat down at lunch one day. And we came up with this idea. He said, what do you want? I said, what do you mean? He says, what do you want? What can I do? I got to do something. What do you want? What can I do? I got to do something. And I said, John, for the next 7 months, I've got to go to intensive, which means every Monday, I have to take my daughter out of bed at about 5-something in the morning, put her in the back of the car, and drive her to the hospital. Every Monday, I'm going to go through triage, and then we're going to go into the room where they're going to sedate her. They're going to put a needle in her chest. They're going to do a spinal tap on my daughter. And they're going to do chemo through her port. And I said, I have to hold her down. And that breaks my heart. I said, what do I want? I said, I know God is timeless and he knows all, but here's what I want. I want every Monday, I want to know that when I'm going to there are people praying for my daughter during that time. That's what I want. And he said, done. And he came up with this idea. These little bracelets, it just says, I pray for KGK. That's my daughter's initial. And he had some made. And he handed them out. Then he gave them out to some more people and had some more made and handed them out. And for those 7 months, this is one of the single greatest encouragements of my life. I will never forget it. Every Monday morning, over 3,000 people wore these bracelets and prayed for my daughter. I can't put into words how cool that is. It's that word. It was my neighbor who set up a computer site for us to be able to communicate with people.
Shit.
Unbelievable. It's that word. It's that word that one of our neighbors, now I didn't tell you this, that year was our year of Job. Have you ever had a year like that? Where nothing goes right? Both our cars broke down. Both our computers, my home and work, crashed. I got my computer for work back. I turned it on, there's nothing there. I call and say, hey, where's my files? They're like, did you want to save those? Yeah. I lost 12 years of work in one day. Unbelievable. A refrigerator burned down. Have you ever heard of that? It burned down. My son said, Dad, I think there's sparks. And we looked out, there's fire coming out from our They came and replaced our refrigerator. I said, have you ever had one burned down? They're like, never heard of it. Our refrigerator, our little dog, we got a dog 2 years old when we were first married. He was 14 and he passed away. And I'm just like, what else is going to go wrong? So a year of Job. And in the middle of that year, my wife was playing tennis one day, and Kennedy, with her little bald head, went over to the tennis courts, and one of our neighbors had a little puppy. And Kenny's holding the puppy. She goes, this is Daisy, and she's petting the puppy, and the little puppy's running around. Cutest thing you ever saw. And when I actually used Daisy, one night, Kennedy did not want to take her medicine. She was just like, no, I don't like it. I'm like, I know, baby, but you got to take it. She goes, I don't want to. And I don't know why I said it. I just said, hey, if you'll take your medicine, we'll go play with Daisy for a minute. And she just went, they gave her medicine. Well, now I'm in a little bit of a dilemma because now I got to take her to see Daisy. It's a little awkward to go to your neighbor's house at 7:30 at night and go, hey, can your dog play for a minute? She took her medicine. But then Mary did something amazingly cool. Mary is Daisy's owner. She called a couple breeders, and a breeder called us and said, hey, I read about your daughter in the paper, and I want to give her a pug puppy. And he drove 2 hours one day to drop off this pug puppy because he said, hey, when can I deliver it? And they said, well, Tuesday's good, and well, Monday would be better, but Ken's out of town, but Tuesday's fine. And he said, why Monday? Well, that's Kennedy's birthday. He said, I'm bringing her. Brought the cage, the dog, and everything. And if you could see her with this puppy, Skittles the pug. Skittles makes everything better. And she has Skittles because somebody took this word. And I learned that word very, very well through this process. The word is simply this: initiative. It's initiative. The number of people that took initiative to just make our world bearable was unbelievable. I even learned it to the point of saying, you know what, I've got to do something. And when Kennedy lost the last little bit of her hair, I came home and she was just smiling ear to ear, these beautiful, beautiful blue eyes. I said, Kennedy, I love your hair. And she rubbed her head and I said, I want your haircut. She said, okay. I said, I want you to give it to me. She said, okay. We sat on the front porch, and for about an hour, she just took the razor and bzz, bzz, bzz. You haven't lived till you have a 4-year-old give you a haircut, okay? I'm just saying. My wife came out halfway through it. She said, oh, goodness. She said, you look like you have mange. And she goes, you're going to let me fix that? I said, oh, no, it's going. It's all going. That night, we laid down to read books. I bicked my head. And we laid down with the books. And Kennedy could not pay attention. She just kept rubbing her head against mine going, Daddy, we're bald buddies. See, I wanted her to know, you're not alone. You're not alone. You're not going through this alone. See, that's what initiative does. It just says, hey, I'm here, and we're going through this together. And I am so thankful for what I've learned from that. Kennedy is doing wonderful. We're now about 4 months past the end of her chemo. She has a great prognosis. But I'll never change what I learned through this process. That idea of taking initiative and taking the time to say, hey, there's something more important than me. And I want you to be able to trust. And that initiative is something that changed my life. I want to leave you the mental picture of what that means tonight. That idea of initiative. A buddy of mine, after one Sunday, he said, hey, what are you doing after church today? I said, nothing. He goes, hey, I got tickets to the Falcons game. You want to go? And I'm like, yeah. So we buzzed down. I'd never been, at that point, never been to the Georgia Dome. How many of you have ever been to the Georgia Dome? Raise your hand. Oh, yes, you'll get this. We had great seats. We were in the 5th row from the roof. My other friend was like, which team are we? I said, we're the little red and silver dots. Now, when you sit up that high after the game, I didn't know this existed, but you can go down those huge ramps that we walked up, and you can walk down them, and they spiral around and around and around. By the time you get to the bottom, you have vertigo. But there's a choice. On each end of the Georgia Dome, there's an express escalator. It goes from the top level all the way to the street level. And the line wasn't long, and my buddy says, hey, come over here real quick. So we got on, and we're like, oh, man, this is awesome. And we started going, it's like 100 yards long, and we're like, oh, this is great. Only problem was, halfway down, It broke. But then we stood there. And we stood there. I began to lean over like, why are we just standing here? And I couldn't see because everybody else was leaning over. Why are we just standing here? We stood there 2.5, almost 3 full minutes, stranded on this escalator. Finally, some guy in the back, out of frustration, I wish it was me, just screamed at everybody, "Walk! Just walk!" And we all started walking down. I wish I could have seen the guy in the front. Oh darn, and I was almost there too. I'm gonna fix this soon. I gotta get home. I'm gonna eat the rest of this M&M.
What?
Well, what a great conclusion to a really insightful, humorous, and touching message from today's guest on Focus on the Family, Mr. Ken Kington.
And that was good stuff. And I can't imagine trying to explain cancer treatment to a 3-year-old. My heart just goes out to Ken and Heather and little Kennedy.
What?
What an incredibly trying time they had. And isn't it so comforting to hear how God
I don't know
really
what
does
you're saying.
walk us through those situations and sends other people along to provide for those tangible needs, like mowing the grass. That's just one reason why it's so important to be a part of a local
Run that
church.
by me
Those
again.
are the people who can be the hands and feet of Jesus to a family in
Our boys
crisis.
game is not that
And
good.
let me remind you that if you're going
I'm
through a
gonna end this
difficult
video
time,
here.
we're here to help. Our friendly
See ya.
staff would be